MySpace, the rise and fall. In a world dominated by the likes of Instagram and Twitter, we tend to forget about a certain social networking website, which goes by the name of MySpace. During its peak days, it was the pinnacle of online social media networking. However, it has fallen a lot since then. If that piqued your interest, then you're in luck, because that is exactly what we're going to be talking about. How did MySpace rise so quickly, and what caused its fall? Without further ado, let's begin. Just like in all our previous videos, we need to go through the history of the social networking site and why it became so successful in the first place, which would help us get a better idea of what led to its eventual decline. So, let's now discuss the history of the once popular social media platform. So, how did MySpace start? Well, it all began in 2003, a time when the site Friendster was gaining traction as a social networking site. A group of people from the eUniverse company saw how popular Friendster had become and thus, based on the same idea, came up with another social network, which was basically inspired by Friendster's most popular features. And just like that, within some days, MySpace was created. However, despite the quick development, the site had all the proper backing of different departments such as finance and human resources, which were developed with the idea of assisting the new social network to become popular. This has all mostly been made possible thanks to Brad Greenspan, who was the owner and CEO of eUniverse. As you can imagine, like most social websites starting their venture, not a lot of people know about it. Initially, only the employees that made MySpace were members of the website. But since the parent company, eUniverse, already had a lot of popularity and fans, it started to compel its email subscribers to join MySpace by emailing them to join the new website. This really boosted the company, as it started the slow climb toward success. Moreover, since Friendster, the only other notable rival in the market, was made from Java, compared to the cold fusion used by MySpace, it made it hard for Friendster to keep up with the rapid changes and upgrades made by MySpace. An example of this was at MySpace, you had the option of customizing certain things. These small tweaks and changes really boosted MySpace, compared to the once mighty Friendster. As you can imagine, it slowly started to overtake Friendster, paving the way for being the world's most popular social network. Before we continue with the story of MySpace, did you know that originally the MySpace.com domain was planned for a site that handled online data storage and subsequent sharing? It was never planned for what it eventually became. However, since the social media platform project was gaining so much popularity, MySpace stuck with the name, and the rest is history. First, the open customization and the social network aspect really attracted a lot of young teens. As a result, thanks to this newfound popularity, more and more people started to join the site, and it started receiving exponential growth. So much so that it helped the company to collect enough money, which helped them to infamously bid for Facebook, as MySpace wanted to cut out any new and profound social media site. In the end, Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook's owner, proposed a price of $75 million. However, this was too overpriced for the MySpace founders, and hence they declined. Imagine what could have happened if MySpace had proceeded to buy Facebook. They would have been worth billions of dollars today. At the time, however, it didn't seem like that much of a big deal, as MySpace seemed like the best there is in the social media world. The stage was set for future success, as it had enough traction and popularity to take the company to new heights. As MySpace gradually became more and more famous, it slowly became known to the world as an up-and-coming company that would soon be worth billions. And, as predicted, News Corporation bought the relatively new company for $580 million in 2005. Now that's some crazy money to fork over for a company that started just 2 years ago. However, given that MySpace was pulling 16 million monthly users on its website spoke a lot about its potential, and News Corporation saw this potential. They hadn't previously invested in any other company, and this acquisition clearly showed that they believed that MySpace would soon be one of the biggest social media platforms out there. And that was not their only motivation, as News Corporation also saw the exponentially increasing user base as means to promote other News Corporation properties through internet advertising. This acquisition did not change anything whatsoever, as it continued its meteoric rise to popularity. This was partly due to the fact that since it was a social platform, it was based on connecting people. Now, as more and more people started using it, they told about it to more and more people, spreading the word even more. This resulted in exponential growth, whose rate grew even more with every new user. Thus, it was to no one's surprise when MySpace was pulling around 200,000 users daily in 2006. That is literally insane for a social media company at that time. The internet was not as common as it is nowadays, and hence it was hard for online platforms to attract people. You must be wondering why people were coming to the website even though the internet was not that easily accessible at that time. Well, this was a time when social networks were not that popular compared to nowadays. Since everyone was signing up for MySpace, it was becoming cool to be on MySpace. People did not want to miss out or stay behind the norm, and hence millions started to sign up for MySpace. The growth was so massive that soon, in around 2007, MySpace overtook Yahoo as the most visited website in the US, after registering 320,000 users daily. Yahoo was one of the biggest websites at the time, and this marked the beginning of the end for them. After this, people started to take notice of the website all over the world. According to reports, people concluded that the reason for such a rapid rise in popularity was due to the high engagement MySpace provided. People were starting to become addicted to the website, surfing through hundreds of pages at a time. After the United States, MySpace continued this momentum and launched localized versions of the website in 11 countries, ranging from Europe to all the way in Asia. However, the UK was still left, and thus MySpace was missing out on a huge market. As expected, they announced plans to start operations in the UK in 2006. This branching out to other countries really helped the website to grow even larger and helped add around 30 million new users to the user base, which now had hit a staggering 90 million users. Well, as you can see, the initial focus of the company was to spread out and acquire as many users as they could manage. Then the second step was to acquire sponsorship for the company, which would bring in revenue that could be reinvested into the company, and hence make it even better for the many users it had. The second step was achieved when Google, which obviously saw the rapid popularity MySpace had gained over such a short span of time, wanted a piece of the millions of users MySpace had. Hence, it signed a huge advertising deal with MySpace, which is worth a staggering 900 million euros over a period of 3 years. Remember the $580 million New Corporation had invested to buy the whole company? Now, that seems small, doesn't it? It is amazing that a company once worth $580 million was now just sponsored for around double its value. After the Google deal, revenue increased drastically. But MySpace continued this upwards trajectory and signed a deal with SoftBank as they opened operations in Japan. As you can see, they weren't stopping anytime soon, and it looked like this dominance will carry on forever. And this was demonstrated by the fact when in 2007, MySpace tried to merge with Yahoo, it was valued at a staggering $12 billion. This guaranteed their place as the biggest social media company in the world. I don't think I need to introduce Facebook, as it's pretty popular right now. Well, despite its popularity nowadays, it started in the least favorable conditions you could imagine. During its release in 2004 to 2005, MySpace, as we just discussed, was already dominating the world. However, even though it struggled at first to affect MySpace as the main competitor, it was a visible threat. Initially, it did not go global, as it was just used at Harvard. However, as soon as Zuckerberg went global, everyone knew that MySpace had found its rival, which was arguably better. Well, over the years, as Facebook expanded its operations, it slowly caught traction and started to get popular. However, this is just the beginning of the end of MySpace, as Facebook slowly started to overtake it in various places and stats. However, it's not that Facebook was so amazing that it managed to attract the world towards itself. It was a combined effect of both MySpace's shortcomings and Facebook's brilliance. Let me explain. First of all, MySpace stuck with the same strategy it had implemented at the beginning of its operations, which built its users around music and entertainment. This might have worked in the beginning, but later on, it started to become repetitive and boring, and many users started to lose interest in the social website over time. On the other hand, Facebook kept on changing things up, brought on a lot of new fresh features, and laid emphasis on socializing directly, not through music and entertainment. This gave the users a more intimate experience, and with the constant updates and changes, Facebook felt better and more interesting to use compared to MySpace. Secondly, remember the record deal MySpace had signed with Google? Well, even though it sounded amazing at the time, in the long run, it turned out to be more harmful to MySpace. Yes, well, I don't blame MySpace initially. I mean, who can say no to $900 million? Especially when the company is in its early stages. But when you sign a deal like this, you have to equip yourself for the consequences it might have. Due to the deal, MySpace had to run a lot of Google Ads, which would add more strain on its already burdened servers. This would really slow down the website, ruining the experience for the users. And the worst thing is that they could not even change their website as they were bound by the advertisement deal. No wonder many left the website for that much faster and much more refreshing Facebook. And lastly, the third reason in my opinion was the priorities both platforms had. News Corporation had initially focused on spreading itself and then was focusing on revenue. However, this is where they were wrong. They had totally neglected engagement, and as I said before, the website was becoming bland. Facebook, as you all know, was prioritizing engagement over revenue, and hence was dedicated to providing the best possible platform to its users, besides increasing their user base. Well, as you can imagine, due to these reasons, MySpace continued to decline, while Facebook continued to rise exponentially. News Corporation was left frustrated as its revenues continued to drop. This resulted in some major changes in MySpace, as they started to react to the sudden decline. A lot of personnel left, and a lot were laid off, as they cut down their employment. This was a drastic cut, as according to reports, they cut down approximately 37.5% of its 1,600 employees. Moreover, the fact that News Corporation had lavish offices all over the world was also changed up, as Facebook had proved a social media platform could grow abroad without these offices if you just handled the servers well. Seeing this, MySpace continued to cut down on expenses in order to keep the company as profitable as it can. While this all helped them to cut down expenses, the issue of the website attracting people was still there. Thus, in 2009, they changed the website a little bit in a bid to bring back its users. However, this didn't work and arguably backfired, as the faithful users didn't like it and started to shift over to Facebook. This was maybe the last nail in the coffin before it was revealed that MySpace was losing millions of active users on a monthly basis. Moreover, they were also dealing with a financial crisis, as the company was losing upwards of $156 million when compared to the last quarter. This was more than enough for News Corporation, and they put the company up for sale in February 2011. They set a reserve price of $100 million, as they thought the name MySpace would bring in suitors. However, with its recent struggles, it had lost its value, and no bids were submitted. As a result, MySpace had to sell it privately to specific media for a measly $35 million. Can you imagine that just 3 or 4 years ago, the company was worth a staggering $12 billion? What a fall from grace, I must say. So you know about the rise and fall of MySpace, but you must be wondering, what has happened to the company now? Well, the company continued to decline under the ownership of specific media, but they didn't sell the company. Rather, they were bought out by Time Incorporated themselves. Afterward, Time Incorporated was also bought by Meredith Corporation. Meredith, however, sold the specific media, and hence MySpace, to Viant Technology Holding. As you can see, it lost its relevance gradually. However, against all odds, it continues to function. This is because it has found another purpose. It has become a social site for musicians specially and helps them connect and share their content. This purpose, even though it attracts a small minority of people, still is enough to keep the website somewhat profitable. We hope it continues to run this way. It's almost sad to see such an ambitious and successful company fall this low. However, it still continues to run, and we're glad it has found its purpose elsewhere. That being said, from being one of the biggest, if not the biggest, social networks out there, to becoming an irrelevant social website for musicians. Sad, to be honest. On that note, let's wrap things up. I hope that answers your questions regarding the rise and fall of MySpace. I think we have covered everything, but if you have any more questions in mind, do let us know in the comments down below. We value the feedback of our esteemed subscribers, so do not hesitate to do so. That's it for the video. I hope you liked and enjoyed it. Please let me know by pressing the like button, and if you haven't done so, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon for future notifications. Till then, take care of yourself, and I'll see you guys in the next one.